Hello, folks, and welcome to Cinema Alley. And tonight is Oscars night. We're here. The Oscars is going to start 1 hour, 1 hour from now, and everything. So, in the meantime, instead of watching those boring, pre-shows where everyone's in their dress and they're showing off and they're like, I got this dress from here. You're gonna be listening to two film nerds talk about one nerd's favorite freaking movies and everything from the Oscar snubs category. um and we're going to be talking about some extra Oscar talk and everything. But first and foremost, the introductions. I am the Gothic Storyteller, and along with me today is film critic Steven Way. Steven, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent. How are you today? Good. Well, you already said that. Never mind. Already off to a good start.
You know what? Like, one day I'm going to have a really good intro to the point that I'm all like, oh my God, nothing really fucked up. Holy shit, I actually did it. Other than that, like, if anyone's ever been watching these episodes, they're always like, Gothic gets himself worked up really, really good, and then he fucks it up, and it's like, son of a bitch, and everything. But yay, for once, I'm not the one that screwed up this time. Yay, blame Steven.
Happy to help.
So for folks that do not know, Steven is a film critic. Me and him go as far back as film school. I think within probably my first year there, that's probably when you were there and everything. You were way ahead into the program, working on a documentary about the politics and media. I think it's probably it's
It
been a
was more
while.
so. It was more so about how people react to media.
There you go. How people
Yeah.
react to media. Um, One day we'll see it. Hopefully, maybe some reshoots and everything, and we'll have this thing out. If I can release my Black Cat looking like a fucking Frankenstein patchwork of a short film, Steven can sit there and release his documentary and everything. But we knew each other back then. He used to work in the cage, which, for those that don't know, that's where all the equipment was, among other equipment for other places. I would always see this dude. This dude always kind of intimidated me. I'm over here. It's like, wow, like, it looks like if I would say yes or hello to him, he'd probably punch me and everything. But here we are, so many years later, and like, we're like the buddies that send each other shit daily between films. And uh as of recently, you've been sending me a lot of horror content that give me nightmares, and I finally got you back on that one.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what movie that was, by the way.
Oh my God, I'm at the like, we converse almost every day, like trying to figure out a conversation from 2 days ago. That's like covering so much fucking content that we share to one another. Thank you so much for Lurk Knox. Uh, Shit, we're gonna have to probably edit one of this part out and everything because my brain had a fart and everything. One of the things that we're gonna sit there and ask Steven and everything is what inspired you to get into filmmaking?
Well, I've always had a passion for the visual medium of filmmaking. Ever since I was told since I was 3. I was told I learned how to operate a VCR, which for the youngsters, that was an avenue of watching movies back in the day. Um, but yeah, I guess I was just always I just like the idea of being entranced into another world and kind of like being a fly on the wall when it came to looking into the different lives of others and things like that. But then again, I've also found it to be a very effective avenue to show empathy towards the misunderstood. Um, that has always captured me immensely the most. Yeah. And then when my availability of other films as I got older, like expanded to more visually detailed films, something that was considered to be too scary when you're a little kid. Films like, Jurassic Park, or because I remember when I was like 5 years. I think it was 5. I think I was like 5 years old when I first saw it. And when the T-Rex came out, I couldn't finish it. I was just like, "Oh my God, I can't watch this." But then as time progressed, I got to see like got to understand the appreciation, because when you're at the age of 5, I mean, yes, you always hear dinosaurs have been extinct, so this is not real, but you don't really. But once you start like grasping, the reality of the situation and knowing that's fake, and you start thinking like, how did they do that? And that just kind of like broadens the mind and just like really encapsulates how you can just encapsulates the fascination of how you can entrance people by doing this kind of thing. So in a nutshell, that's it. It basically just the fact that you can present other worlds or present a different point of view or basically present something that is outside just your normality and say,
Mhm.
hey, I'm doing this and I'm approaching it with you in a very welcoming way, you know. Yeah, that's basically
You also sound
the
like an
main
author
reason
too.
why.
I feel like that's something Stephen King would say as like, I'm gonna bring you into this world and I'm gonna traumatize you. Come here. And um
Yeah. Do you consent
what I
to this or
wanna
not? Yes. All right. Woo.
the moment your ass is in that seat, it's staying there.
Hmm.
Unless you're watching Craven the Hunter, then you're walking the fuck out.
Oh, I'm getting flashbacks. Flashbacks. Woo.
So what I want to know is what was the one film that when watching this is definitely what I want to go into that profession.
Hmm. That is a good one. If I'd have to pick it on the spot, I would have to say Back to the Future. I just remembered being totally influenced by a plethora of things on it. First off, Michael J. Fox, you know, he in his iconic performance in that, and I remember how Christopher Lloyd, how I wanted to act like, you know, his bizarre nature, you know, as you know, Doc Brown. I also it also got me to really appreciate musical scores as well, because Alan Silvestri's just iconic,
Mm-hmm.
epic score. You could like there was one time where I was like driving down a main highway, and then I just had that score come on, and I just started like increasing the speed. Like I had to get to 88 miles an hour, to get that dun 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 dun, dun kind of thing. And it that was really heavily influential, and also obviously the visual effects as well. But then it really is a perfect encapsulation of everything that needs to be done to perfection in each category of a film. And the biggest one is that, yeah, I mean, you got great performances, you have great visual effects, great score. What else is there? The big enchilada is great storytelling. And this
Mm-hmm.
in the script, which was nominated for an Oscar in 1985, and I think it won for best visual effects too. But the screenplay is immaculate. Yes, it obviously runs into the inevitable of when it comes to time traveling films, where you can pick out little bits and pieces here of how this wouldn't work, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But it does you can tell it still makes the effort to make it work. And then not only that, but also the philosophy of like what would it be like to encounter your parents when you're at your age, and how that would change your life basically, and how if you also made just that one decision in life, that just would that really have changed everything, like your basically your position in life, whether it be economically or personally and things like that. And it was a very, very it was the first film where I was like, okay, I started noticing the different elements of how films work. Like it works on a storytelling level, it works on a visual level, it works on a very mainstream level. Like you have like all the because there are like some pop songs on there that don't make a lick of sense, but it just works perfect for it. Like Huey Lewis and
Yeah.
The Power of Love. That's the power of. I mean, I guess maybe if you could nitpick, it does work in certain areas, but you can just tell that they just threw a pop song to advertise it a little bit better, and it
Oh yeah.
works. It
Yeah.
really does work. So yeah, that's
It's that
Back to the
shameful
Future, I would
plug-in.
say. Yeah. So Back to the Future, I would say, is what really inspired me to think, you know what? I want to learn about this more. I want to learn how they do this. So yeah.
For those of you guys listening also to live, tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the morning, as always, when my new episode drops, my interview with Warbler is on there, and we did talk Back to the Future. Because of him, I was finally able, because I've seen the first one, like, a few times, but never, like, outright, like, kind of devoted my time to it. And then I actually watched the other two entries. So now I've seen the entire trilogy. I guess it's
Ooh.
like to me, especially when you talk about like the music score and everything, is like I
Mhm.
remembered at the end of the first one, I was so excited for part two, and then
Oh
I
yeah.
liked how like part two kind of was all like pre MCU. It's all like we're gonna show you next time on part three, and it's like whoa, what the
Right.
fuck is this? Instead of a post credit scene, it was like a post credit trailer,
I
or
think I think that was one. I don't know. It may not have been the first, but it was definitely one of the earlier ones where they really filmed two installments back to back, and then they
yeah,
released it. Yeah, where they
yeah,
did that kind of
and
thing.
And then of course like a little bit of me whenever part three came out and everything, I'm like waiting for the end. I was like, are we gonna get a post credit trailer? Like he I
Hmm.
kind of like already had that instilled in me, and but yeah, no, definitely sit there and go check that out. Otherwise, if you guys are like listening to it late, it comes out March the 3rd. So like you guys have probably already watched this. Um, one of the big things that definitely sit there and bonded us when we started reconnecting outside of school was film criticism. I sent you the friend request. I was like, oh god, let's hope that he doesn't sit there and bully me. Because for me, I always have this negative outlook that everyone can beat the shit out of me and bully me and just want to be mean and everything. Steven, thank God, is not one of them. But like, you've always sat there and you've always sent me some of your reviews in case if it's like, does this sound right? How does this good? I'm like his beta reader, and essentially, and so like how long have you actually kind of in a sense become a film critic? Because I do look at you as a film critic. You do, you may not have like a part in some magazine or some show online or whatever, but you do film criticisms, and you post them on Letterbox and among some of the other places.
So one big influence, like I've always watched a show called Siskel and Ebert when I was young, but really I didn't really pay as much mind to it then as I really do now. And mainly because, their vocabulary and their insights and all that other stuff was a little bit too much of a little kid to comprehend back in the day, at least for me. And what really started, I've I would have to say, was I was in the military, and it was 2012. It was the summer of 2012, so I was about 25 or 24, and I was just trying to YouTube movie reviews. Um, I don't know. I guess I just felt like wanting to listen to one. And then there was this guy named Jeremy Johns. People, if they don't know, Jeremy Johns is this guy who is hilarious with his movie reviews. I think he resides in Washington somewhere. And started watching his stuff, and then he had like this ongoing thing where he would review like trilogies, sagas, all that stuff. And I remember being totally just like peeing my pants laughing when I was listening to his Batman and Robin review because he did like all those classic ones. And the way he just kind of like he was going like just the horrific nature of that film. I mean, I like it, but I know understand it's not a good movie whatsoever. It's a so
Yeah,
bad it's a good film for
as a
me.
kid, it's
Um,
hilarious. As an adult,
yeah,
it's like all the ice puns that you could fit in one scene, and it's like, oh my god, there's still like another 90 minutes
right,
of this. Like,
right. And so once I started watching this stuff, like I found myself like literally going like an all weekend binge just watching his stuff because this was 2012 and he started in 2009 and he was literally doing like at least two films per week on his YouTube channel. So I was just watching all that shit. And then there were just times where I was just like, I was picking out ones that were my favorites and rewatching those. And so as soon as I got that, I started getting used to him. I was like, I wonder if there's more people out there who did this. And I was late to the game when it comes to like finding out about YouTube channels and shit like that. But so I went to the guys who were known as the Schmoes back in the day. They're no longer together. Christian Harloff was one of them, and he has his own channel now. But they were called Schmoes No, and they were just as funny
Yeah.
as well. And then a lot of people, this led me because they had collaborated with him a few times, and I know he's still famous, but he's also kind of infamous, and a lot of people are giving him shit for some reason. But Chris Stuckman, he did a lot of
Really?
collaborations with them. Yeah, he kind of went a different direction with his content, and I mean,
I
I
definitely know
never
he
understood.
became a little bit more
Yeah.
friendly when he started doing like the movies, and like people are like, well, he's not trying to shit on every movie because he
Hmm.
wants to make connections in the industry. And it's like, well, there's a way you can still sit there and not really be shitty, but like you can
Yeah.
actually critique this film and say, me personally, and all this,
Yeah.
But most film critics will always laugh at you as, oh, you said me personally. And it's like, well, I always look at every film critic's thing as it's a personal opinion. It's never an
Right.
official opinion. Like, this film is utterly garbage, and
Hmm.
so
And there's definitely have been, I mean, as a guy who watched him since like 2012, 2013, there has been a difference in quality, and I will
hmm
acknowledge that. But I mean, I never looked at the dude and just being like, oh my God, I'm never going to see this guy again. Like, I never saw that. But
yeah.
anyway, and then all that kind of led to a little bit more to where I was like noticing, like, I wonder if people did something less modern and more classic. I mean, in terms of like that's their main focus. Like they don't do just solely new releases, and that led me to Doug Walker, who is known as the Nostalgia Critic. And again, a lot of people I know he had his problems too as well. With me though, I still watch these people because one thing I always do is I always separate the art from the artist. And I know there's a lot of problematic things that come with that, but that's just me. And I look at it and I just like, I see their analytical point of view and I'm just saying, like, do you agree or disagree? And that's just how I see it. And it's just an entertainment to me. And I really do think that it's an art that definitely needs to be as abundant as possible because that creates a more broadening of quality or basically a broadening of quality because it doesn't mean that we're just going to uh, basically succumb to these mindless repetitive mind-numbing films like Moana 2 or just
Or
these
the live action one
revamps
that's
and
gonna
yeah.
come.
Oh jeez. Yeah, just all that
I,
stuff.
I'm I'm worried about Lilo and Stitch. I love that movie so much, and that was a 90-minute film, and they're making it like a 2 hour and 23 minute. I was like, what the fuck did you guys add? And people are like, oh, well, they're probably adding storylines from like the animated film sequels. I was like, that's not how you fucking adapt a fucking. No, 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 no,
No.
no. Oh my god.
Nope. Yeah, it's just sad when
Uh,
you go to these things now and because I remember when Disney was Disney and you went to go see something of quality. Now you go to Disney to see like, all right, how are they gonna F up this turkey? It's just like you're just kind of
yeah,
curious about that. Yeah.
it's like, look, my expectations are low. They can't go
Hmm.
any lower at this point. And then sometimes when
But
you see the film, you're like, no, they actually can go lower, and it's like, yeah,
right. So I'm sorry, what were we? Oh, the film criticism thing.
yes.
Yeah. So that's where it like really kind of ignited into me, and then I went back to the Siskel and Eberts, and then the Ebert and Ropers, and then the Ben Mankiewicz and Ben Lyons, and then the A.O. Scotts and the Michael Phillips, and then Christy Lemire. I can just go on listing all these people
Amy
who were
Rose
just like
Eisenbach
highly
as
influential.
well.
Yeah, yep.
Um,
And
John
so
Campia. I don't know if
John
you're a
Campia is
Campia
a good
fan.
one.
I love Campia.
I like Campia's meltdowns. I wouldn't say I like his criticisms, but I like his meltdowns.
I think like Campia tried. I think Campia is probably like the one thing that maybe Stuckman should try to kind of like where Campia can go and have a meltdown, but then Campia can also fairly assess a film,
Yeah.
depending also on the film itself, but also too if the film's made by a piece of shit, then Campia, well, you'll definitely see it struggle of I'm trying to see something nice about this, but the artist itself is not a good person or whatever. But I still look at him as he's like he is like, I guess, like the fairest one out there, right next to Harloff and again Jeremy
I
Johns.
mean,
Jeremy Johns would make me
mm,
fucking laugh as hell, but at the same damn time, it's like I know he's being genuine and I know he's being honest and
yeah.
everything.
Yep.
And sometimes he actually asks the questions that we're all thinking too. It's like, yeah, like what the
Mhm.
fuck was all that about? And then the film's like, don't worry about it. And Jeremy's like, no, let's worry about this because it actually affects the rest of your movie moving forward. And the one thing I do want to sit there and ask you real quick before we move on to your films, um, so when I don't know if it had like a different name when you were in film school with me, but the film criticism class, like, did that class to you feel like, oh, this is mine, because you were invested in these other film critics and everything, like to this, was this like your moment to like really sharpen your skills as a film critic?
Ironically, from what I remember, there was I felt like I was practically it was practically implied that I was going about the wrong way, because film criticism, there's like a formula to it if you're like really going to be professional about it. The
Mm-hmm.
one the what inspired me was basically like the for lack of a better term, like the rogues of film criticism. You know, the ones
Okay.
that, yes, they do give their own opinion, but then they kind of see like how it works. You know, kind of in their perspective about how it should be and all this other stuff. But then you go to film school and then you learn about, you know, the film techniques. You learn about how story structure and all this other stuff in order to basically combine the two and have an understanding of where it went wrong or how it combines together and things like that. And when I got into that class, I was just like, oh, I kind of got this all wrong, and then started to see a little bit better. But when I got in and started giving my opinions toward it, there were some. I can't remember who it was, but then again, I also did some of it outside in different classes. Like there's this
Mm-hmm.
one professor named Scott No. You remember him?
We
Um,
love No. I love him.
yeah,
He
Scott
was my
No
film
was,
criticism teacher.
yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. Was he my criticism teacher? I can't remember. Oh my God, my
In
memory
that
is
class,
shot.
I felt like the
Anyway,
teacher's pet. Because
yeah,
anytime that if he asked anyone a question, have you guys seen this movie? And
yeah,
most of the people are silent. He's like, James, have you seen it? I'm like, yeah. And I'll quickly give a quick detail about it. He's like, thank you, James. He's like, be more like James. And I'm like, ah, shit. And I was like, I feel like that put a target on me. And like, there'd be some people at the class are like, so have you seen this movie before? Can you give me the clip notes of it? And it's all like, it
right.
felt like drug dealing. It's like, yeah, here's the plot, here's the director. And it's like,
Like I definitely had him in several classes. I definitely remember him in business management and things like that. But one thing I do know is that he okay, no, it was film criticism. Because we were watching a film. There were a few classes where we were watching films where he asked me to pick them, and he was just like, I
oh,
would like you to pick this one or pick. I think there was two of them. One was definitely Magnolia, but I can't remember the other one. And he said, I would like you. We were gonna watch this film. We watched the whole damn. That's a 3-hour film, and we watched the whole
3 hours
film.
and 3 minutes exactly. Because
Yeah,
I've seen it.
yeah, yeah.
I've seen it a
And we
lot.
were watching it because we wanted to know, like, what did you think about that scene? I'm not going to spoil it on here, but that scene, what did you think that all tied together? And then I was kind of giving my aspect on it. And he basically, what he did, from what I remember, is that we basically obtained all those who were willing to give their perspective on it, and then he says, "Okay, and Steven?" And then I basically, kind of gave it up after that. And I was just like, "Oh man." I mean, it was like simultaneously cool, but then again, I was just like, "Oh god, this is teacher's pet shit." But but
And
anyway,
it's
he
but
was,
you could talk so much
yeah,
film with him with that,
yeah,
and he could carry just as much, I think, with you, the same passion about it and everything. And he
mhm,
can get so excited. Like even Hilliard gets excited sometimes too. If you hit one of those films, he's like, oh my god, like right in
Oh
it.
God, yes.
And I'm like over here, he's like, he's a big black guy, and I'm like over here, it's like, don't tackle me. It's like it feels like, I'm about to like, be tackled by a football player.
Oh
And
man.
it's him and Scott. No, to me, those were like the two best ones.
But what really, yeah, no, we can go into like a whole other show about how Scott
Yeah,
No and Lionel Hilliard just the absolute best. But with Scott
those are
No,
the men on your team.
um, but Scott No, what he did is that one thing I remembered the most is that we tried to. I mean, granted, very very little people showed up, but we also had like this kind of like extra class like outside like after class to where the people say, hey, if you want to go watch this movie with us, we'll watch it and then we'll analyze it together. And we did that a few times. But yeah, no, he was a great supporter throughout my journey and tried to flourish in terms
Mm-hmm.
of film criticism. He was an amazing dude. I haven't heard from him in the longest time, but man, he'll always be a huge influence in my life. Both him and Hilliard. Hilliard even like was even kind enough when I was trying to mix because I was a fan of Hot Ones back. I mean, I'm still a fan of Hot
Mm-hmm.
Ones, but this was when Hot Ones became like exploding. I basically was like introducing people to it at the Art Institute because I mean, when I asked them, "Have you seen this?" They're like, "No," and we started watching it over and over and over. And I was like, "I wonder if I could do this, but the movie version." And Lionel was very kind enough to partake, and man, it was I think the video is still out there. It's somewhere, and I know Lionel has it because I gave it to him directly. But yeah, we did a Hot Ones episode ourselves, and just the support between him and Scott No is what really made me think. You know what? I could do this.
I definitely feel like those two men, they were the ones that they would, if you have a dream, they believed in you enough that you can achieve that dream.
Yep.
I'm not sitting there saying every professor back where we went, to school was not like that. There were some that were definitely sink or swim. Like it's like go
Yeah.
out there, do it, and if you fail, you fail. Oh well. Like all you can either do is pat yourself off and try again, or just don't.
Mhm.
And then there were some to me I felt like I think maybe they're trying to figure themselves out and how to teach, and so they struggle teaching us, and so we're all like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and they secretly kind of don't want to. They can't say it, but at the same time, they're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either, kid. It's like just trust me here, and we
Right.
we try to give our best, but we do have to move on to our films and everything because we're almost halfway through the show. Um, I was gonna say Chris. I got the wrong fucking film critic here. I think I'm interviewing Suckman. Steven and everything has got three films that are in some way or shape a Oscar snub of sorts and everything. So we're gonna start off before we get into some really dark shit. Though this film can be dark. We're gonna start in with Jonathan Levine's 50-50, a comedy drama. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Uh, why am I forgetting his damn name? I can hear his laugh.
Seth
Seth Rogen.
Rogen.
There we go. I think that was a terrible Seth Rogen impersonation, and like Bryce Dallas Howard's was like in that, which again didn't even look like her. It was so different and everything.
Hmm.
Why did you pick 50-50?
So 50-50, I think, is a perfect dramedy. It just mixes the genres of comedy and comedy and drama so well. I remember it's one of those films that I caught it. I caught it at the right point in my life to where it could immensely help me through some hard times. I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
going through a divorce at the time, and it was a very yeah it was very very hard. And then there was like some similarities in that film that I was like kind of relating to with the hardships that he was going through. Now granted, I've never had cancer, but in terms of like relationships, dealing with a support system that wasn't really there, and then also me understanding like how I myself needed to put myself in check in terms of people who where I considered my support system as well. It just kind of encapsulated that to a just just a very effective degree. So all three of these films have one commonality. All three of them were nominated for Best Actor at the Golden Globes. I don't know if they received any for Critics' Choice, SAGs, or BAFTAs, but I do know it was all Golden Globes. And they were all nominated for Best Actor, but they didn't reach the Best Oscar nomination. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, this was a unique experience with his performance. For those who don't know, this movie is just a simple story about a young man who has cancer, and it's about him dealing with the hardships with that, and hopefully will receive the proper treatment for it to go away, and so he can continue living his life. And with that, he endures infidelity from his girlfriend. He has a possible thing with his therapist who is well intended, and I mean they really, yeah, it was well intentioned. I mean, they never really tried to pursue anything, but they can't help knowing that there is something there, so they're trying to try to find the adequate balance for that. And his buddy Seth Rogen, he's basically using this as his illness as an opportunity to score chicks, as kind of like a sympathy kind of catch, kind of thing. Very, very pathetic, and but
it never occurred to me that someone could, even with like cancer and everything, that like when they tried to pick up the chicks and they had like the two hot ones and everything, and he goes to the bedroom and like his whole body just hurts because of the chemo. Right. Because I think he was probably on like his second chemo treatment at that time when they finally did it, and he's all like, "Can you kind of get off me? Like it just hurts." And it's all like, this man can't even enjoy sex with a hot girl because of what the chemo was doing to the body. And I'm over here, it's like, yep, nope, this film destroyed any idea of me of like, oh, if you have cancer, like all the sex with all the pretty girls is like, yeah, no. It's like your body hurts. It all hurts. It's why all those old men were fucking eating fucking stoner brownies and shit and just relaxing in the chair. Like that's their fun.
Right. And so this film, really, I was like kind of relating to the subplot where where he's having the problems with his girlfriend, and where the other subplot where he was having a hard time connecting with his family, and obviously where he realizes he wasn't really there for his family because of all the shit that's happening in his life. And there's this one scene where it was kind of therapeutic, because I was going through a whole bunch of stuff that was just bottling up, and I just could not adequately like just let go, just like have that good scream or have that good intense reaction, just like, okay, it's out of my head, I can like figure out how I can deal with this, right? And just like vicariously, there's a scene where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character just has this complete meltdown, and he just like grabs the steering wheel and just like lets a huge scream just out the top of his lungs. And I remember just feeling like, oh my God, I needed that. And it just so affected me on a personal level, right? And so I started to realize just how amazing this performance is. Like throughout the whole, prior to that, I was thinking like, okay, I really like this guy. This is a good performance. But then he just like comes out and hits you with that scene, and you're just like, oh my God, everything else was like very subdued, and this is what he really feels on the inside. And I was just like, okay, this is great acting on how to deal with it. And then the runtime preceding that, you get to see him still trying to maintain his cool, and then he has like this very subtle scene where he's about to have his operation, and he keeps on asking questions that he's just so worried about it, and he's trying to hold back the tears, and then his mom says it's okay, and he just like, you could just see this genuine emotion that is just it's absolute perfection in my eyes.
It's
And the fact that it
it's
was not nominated for Oscar is criminal to me.
like he's gonna get his Oscar one day. I definitely
Hopefully,
feel
yeah.
like he's gonna be one of those guys, kind of like Leo, where like Leo had
Hmm.
numerous opportunities to get that Oscar, but he never got it, and then it took him getting fucking tore to bits by a fucking bear to and I mean, like, even though, yeah, that was like a whole like actor, which, like, seeing all that stuff, and like the CGI thing where it's just a dude just dragging him and everything, but like those winters were harsh, what they were filming in, to really get like that feel. Like, I definitely feel like Joseph's definitely going to get it. And when you definitely asked me for that one scene of like, what'd you think about it? I was all like, oh yeah, that was like a whole lot. But of course, I had think clinched more on into this movie that I was just so shocked that, God, Seth Rogen's actually acting, and
Yeah.
it's not like it's like, and then like rips a fart or like rips a bong, and like, like this actually kind of felt like, wow, Seth is like actually a human being, kind of
I will
crappy,
admit, I
because
will.
yeah, he was using his buddy's
Yeah.
cancer for him to pick up chicks, and even that gets addressed, and like, while it probably isn't completely, you know I guess, like, how that whole situation isn't completely settled, he's
Hmm.
still there at the end. Like,
Right.
even though he's not up there in the room with like his family, he's over here, he's waiting in the cold, and then like later he's in the waiting room, and like, he's like, dude, I need to sit there and like I need to know. And then I love that brother friendship bond that they have towards the end, when like he needs to put the ointment on for his thing, and he's like, and everything, and like I think he compared it to a vagina at one point or something like that. And then like the guy's like, "You're not using your finger, are you?" He's like, "What?"
There's
He's like, "There's
Q-tips.
Q-tips over there." Yeah, yeah, I know that, dude. He's like, "Did you wash your hands?" Like, I'm like, "Oh my fucking lord, oh my
Yeah.
god."
I think the scene where it really shows him, like, it still I mean, yeah, he's doing like all these despicable things, but it really does show him that he still supports his friend, is like when he catches Joseph Gordon-Levitt's girlfriend at the time with another guy, and he decides to get the phone.
Yes.
But what was funny is I just love his reaction where he's just like, okay, am I going to get this? I'm going to get this. He gets a perfect photo of her cheating, and he's like, oh, and I was just like, oh my god.
And then like the whole practice of it too. It's like, I have something to show you. I have something to show you, and he shows it to him. I fucking knew it. And like he is just like, and I'm all like, dude, this isn't a fucking football game. What the fuck are you
Yeah.
doing? It's like his buddies over here like, oh my god, I'm finding out my girlfriend's cheating on me, and this dude's over here like he's at a wrestling match, like, yeah, you cheated on my best friend. And like she's just trying her best not to freaking cry, and like I'm like, Jesus Christ, mate. It's like,
But what was funny is that for those who don't know, this movie was actually written by Seth Rogen's best friend, and this
mm-hmm.
was actually a depiction of his best friend who did suffer through cancer, and Seth Rogen was with him at the time. So basically, Seth Rogen was playing himself. So when he did that scene, I was just like, this does feel like Seth Rogen, and sure enough, it was
Yeah.
Seth. Yeah.
uh to move on a little bit further and everything, because we're almost running out of time,
Okay.
and I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about these films, because this next one we were definitely talking about quite a bit right before recording, Dan Gilroy's Nightcrawler, which, if you guys were together during the Cinema Alley days of the podcast, and I had my buddy Chris Cup here, this was one of the big ones he picked. I remember reading the script to it. I hated this fucking main character. Jake Gyllenhaal's character is a despicable human being with like no real moral code whatsoever. um and then I watched the movie and I was like, wow, why do I feel even more depressed and everything? And it's like the color palette and everything, but there were a few outstanding performances. Most importantly, Bill Paxton, God rest his soul, and everything. Loved him in that fucking film. He was like, what, the first act, first half, maybe. He wasn't there for the whole
I think he
run.
was, yeah. Well, no, he obviously there was something that happened to him. I think that was the first 2/3. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and everything, but wonderful, outstanding neo noir thriller. And of course, it's funny enough, when we had you first on here, when we were doing the bite-sized episodes, you were picking noir, and I'm like, noir, and you're like, well, this is neo noir. I was all like, that works and everything. So of course you pick another one and everything. Why did you pick this one?
So, Nightcrawler, this was, it's funny that you mentioned, how screenplay just kind of turned it off, which means it's effective. It was nominated for best screenplay. Um, and, but it didn't get best actor for Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, this movie really, this was a prime example of how one film, despite a actor's past line of work, can make you completely change your opinion on him. I mean, I've never hated Jake Gyllenhaal. I thought he was just an okay actor. There was just things about him that I was just like, I'm just seeing this pretty
He's an
boy
early
who is
2000s sad boy
yeah.
because of Donnie Darko.
I was like watching, actually, one movie I remember him before that was a movie called October Sky. And that was my introduction to him. And then I remember seeing him in well, not a cameo, but he was like an extra. He was like at the age of like 8 or something like that in a movie called City Slickers. He played Billy Crystal's son in that movie. Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and so I started like, that's how I kind of knew him. And then a lot of I mean, this movie seems to go into obscurity, and we need to prevent this from happening. He was in a comedy. It's a horrible comedy, but man, it is a precious horrible comedy called Bubble Boy. And
Yes.
all I got to say, all I got to say is go see it. It is definitely a product of its time. There are a bunch of stuff that doesn't work, today.
It's kind of like Harold and Kumar.
It is still
definitely product of its time. Will never be replicated.
Yeah, but it's just amazing to watch. And so, yeah. Anyway, and then a lot of people say Donnie Darko. I was actually late to the game on Donnie Darko. I think I saw Donnie Darko like in 2 years prior to going to film school. So I was just like, I saw it and I was just like, yeah, I can understand how people say that they were confused by the ending, and I understand a cult classic, but whatever. But anyway, prior to that, he was also in Brokeback Mountain, where he received his first Oscar nomination. I love that movie, but I will admit that moment where he has like his first like meltdown, where he just like yells at Heath Ledger for not for not being the basically the lover that he wanted. He how he said he wanted a different life with him. I was just like, it was just like, I want to believe this, but I just can't. I don't know. I believe Heath Ledger's performance, but Gyllenhaal, I don't know what it is. And so I'm really rooting for this dude. Like, I really hope for this one performance. And then after Brokeback Mountain, I mean, he had other ones, of course, but
I think did he do Zodiac after that or before Brokeback?
He did do Zodiac after that, but Zodiac, I mean, still same thing. He played too much of a happy.
For once, he played a very happy character that was like, well, I'm trying to have my job and my family, trying to have that cake and eat it too. But it doesn't work out. But for some reason, he's still very optimistic in that film. And I'm all like, you're a very sad guy in these other films, and now this film, you're playing such an optimistic character. Like, yeah.
But then, and then he was in like Prince of Persia, but that was like a big budget, pretty boy kind of movie and all that. But then Nightcrawler came, and he lost a tremendous amount of weight, and he had like, I don't know if they did something to it with his eyes, or if it was just him like doing this the whole time, but just look at his eyes throughout this whole movie. It is just like, it is like this constantly throughout, and you just feel like really just uncomfortable just like looking at this dude. And it is like a perfect amalgamation of subtlety, but when you look at his eyes, like there is nothing subtle about that. Like you can tell
he's always intense, but it's a very subtle intense of like,
and he offsets that with a very kind of, I wouldn't say timid, but very kind of soft, kind of like Mr. Rogers, like in a very messed up way kind of voice. He's like, I would like to, yes, I would like to do this, and I would like to know if you have this opening. No? Well, what about this? But when you start to realize that he just doesn't take no for an answer, you're like, something is very wrong with this dude. And then you start to realize it's a very weird it's very weird for the audience how they accept this character, because yes, he does have a go-getter attitude that is very admirable, but then again, what he does is highly unethical, trying to get
Yeah,
that, trying to get what he wants in life. Yes, I can understand doing what you have to do to make it happen, but there has to be a
because like I
limit,
think there was a gang
Yeah.
execution that I think he went to, and they were I think obviously gone, but he saw the body
Mhm.
on the ground, like I think like with like it's practically like I think like its head, like but and
Yeah.
he's like just over there just recording it, like he is so. It kind of almost reminds me a little bit of the Cronenberg film Videodrome, where it's like we're so obsessed with watching something so grotesque, and once we
Yep.
have a bit of it, we want more and more, and that's what this film reminded me of. It was like
Yeah.
that. It's that stuff of like we've seen enough of like the stuff that cinema can do with its practical effects or maybe some CGI, but you know what really hits the spot? Some of that shit that looks like a snuff film, and it's like
Right.
dirty side. I'm pretty sure everyone has had some form of curiosity to it, but like our moral standings, all like, well, what the fuck are people going to think of if I saw this? And but at the same time, you look at the news today, they show quite a bit.
Yep.
And that's exactly what this film I kind of felt was about, was just the shit that we would show, because there was I think even like one dude at the news station that he was selling this stuff to was like, we can't show this, like this is sick. And the
Yep.
woman's all like, play it, and I'm all like, oh shit, because she wants the ratings. And that's when
Yep.
it starts really kind of talking to you about even the media today, like it's not in this film, like it
Because
speaks
she
to it
was
today of we buy into it.
because she was considered old news and she wanted to be the big shot again, and through that was the avenue of this. But I will say this, like if you want to go to, well, don't do it, because you need the everything preceding it to make it more effective. But if you're watching this film and you're thinking like, yeah, this is creepy, but it's not that creepy, enough for me to be highly impact. There is this one scene up to it where it's approaching the climax of the film, and it's a simple scene where uh, Jake Gyllenhaal and Riz Ahmed, who plays his protege in
That's
this movie,
right.
and he basically is asking him to do something highly unethical, and
Hmm.
Riz Ahmed plays like this very desperate individual who will do anything to get a job. And he started to realize that this is not right. And if he is going to do it, he is going to ask for more money. And Jake Gyllenhaal sees this as a threat. And then he proceeds with this very low key, but very effective and intense threat towards his life. Like
Hmm.
he's very subtle about it. He's not direct, but he's getting his point across. And that scene right there, that scene right there solidified me saying, okay, this guy is a tremendous actor. Something tells me that from now on, I am going to be watching films where I'm just like, okay, it's going to go on from here. It's kind of like Channing Tatum. Like I never thought much of the dude when he began, but once I saw him in 21 Jump Street, I'm like, this dude's fucking hilarious. Like I love this guy. And then
Yeah.
from then on, I was just like, yeah, Channing Tatum's not bad. And it was the same with Gyllenhaal. Like a very underrated film called Southpaw he was in. He was
Yep.
immensely amazing in that. He
That
was
was
in a
Tom
great
Hardy,
film called
right?
The Covenant. I'm sorry, what?
Wasn't that Tom Hardy that was I think with them when he was training? I think it was like
Southpaw?
his
No.
trainer.
Southpaw, his trainer was Forrest Whitaker.
Okay, I think the one I'm thinking of is then the Warrior. That's the one I think Tom Hardy was being I think trained by Bale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. Warrior was with Tom Hardy and Joel. His name escapes me, but also the guy who was training him was Frank Grillo. Or no. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Frank Grillo. Frank Grillo wasn't training Tom Hardy in that movie, but he was in it. He was training the other guy, and Nick Nolte was his trainer in that movie.
Okay.
Technically,
Okay.
yeah. But anyway, but yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal. That was the movie that made me turn my opinion on him in terms of credibility. And like I said, Nightcrawler is just a perfect showcase of a true sociopathic, go-getter, basically. And I highly
I would
recommend it.
I would probably sit there and say because Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger's career kind of run parallels of like they hit these really big strides in their career. I think
Yeah.
Nightcrawler is Gyllenhaal's Joker for The Dark Knight.
Yep.
I think
That
it's
is
like one of those things,
100%
and
true. Yep.
yeah, like that's
That's
that
perfect.
I think that's probably got to be his darkest role ever, because I don't think he's ever done anything like that ever. You know, probably I think the only thing closest to that was Prisoners. But I kind of felt like it was more Hugh Jackman that went super low, you know, especially that one scene where he's got what's his
Yeah,
name,
but
the guy who was
Prisoners, he wasn't.
Paul Dano, you
Yeah,
know, and it's getting so close to his fingers, and he's just beating the shit out
yeah,
of that damn
yeah.
saint.
But Prisoners wasn't. I mean, it's a great performance from him. I think that was before Nightcrawler, though.
Yeah,
And I
because
think I saw that after Nightcrawler. So, but I do remember that being a good performance. But he wasn't like batshit crazy. I mean, he did do things
yeah,
that was a little questionable. But yeah,
he was like that cop that's like, I'm doing my job, and it's like, you're not doing your
hmm
job fast enough. I know, and like, you know,
he, he,
he
he
kind of has
played
it where,
Burnout really well. Yeah,
yeah, you know,
yeah.
that was definitely what it is and everything.
Hmm.
Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal, best performance probably in his career at for that time. You know, we still got, you know, more time hopefully with him and everything that he can pull something out. I can't really think of anything that I think he's been in recently.
Jake Gyllenhaal. He
Yeah,
was in that Roadhouse movie last
yeah,
year.
you know, I didn't care for that one too much. Like, and it's funny too because like he works with Patrick Swayze and Donnie Darko, and now he's playing this. And I remember like watching that like Donnie Darko when I was like young, and I'm over here. It's like, why the fuck is the Bubble Boy picking on, you know, Dalton from fucking Roadhouse? Like, don't he know he could just whip his ass? He could rip his heart
Right.
out, you know, like he did that
All
one
right.
dude. And then you look at Roadhouse, and I was like, I'm sorry, I could not buy into Roadhouse. But the best entertaining part of that movie was Conor McGregor. Like just the way he
Yeah.
strolled on there, he had way too much fun on that film set. And of course, it
Oh
was funny
yes.
hearing all the stories of Gyllenhaal's like, "I'm so sorry I hit you," and like he's like over here, he's like, "You talking about that was great," and like, oh my lord, like working with that dude must have been a trip. We are gonna sit there. We are gonna tackle a very complex film, a film that I felt like I failed, Steven, because I passed out to this. But hopefully later this
Hey.
week, when I have a little bit more time, I will go back and rewatch it and everything. Uncut
Yeah.
Gems by the is it the Safri? Is that how their last name?
Daffy. Daffy.
Safdie. Safdie. The Safdie
Yeah.
brothers, Josh and Benny. This is a crime thriller. I remember seeing the trailers to this, and I kind of like thought, like, is this like a mob film? But as like I'm like walking through and watching this, I'm over here like, no, this looks a lot more deeper, and just the opening of the gem that kind of comes into play, almost like the rosebud, I guess you would sit there say kind of, or like the Maltese Falcon kind of, you know, object that the character Howard that Adam Sandler plays is like so obsessed with. And you know, it's like it's almost like it's since it's rock now at this point. Why did you pick Uncut Gems?
Because I love the evolution of Adam Sandler in terms of his pursuits outside of Happy Madison Productions. Again, this is a different kind of switch in terms of, you know, noticing a difference in credibility for an actor's work. Like, I've always loved Adam Sandler,
Yeah,
and I loved his comedies. I don't care what critics say. You know, to me, Adam Sandler comedies is like the equivalent of just being drunk with your buddies. It's not demanding, you know, it's
yeah,
just a good time hanging out, bullshitting, you know, kind of thing. And as long as you go in with that mentality and understand you're not going to be getting anything of high substance, you know, you get what you paid for, right? And then the reason why I picked this one over Punch Drunk Love, he was nominated for a Golden Globe for Punch Drunk Love as well with Paul Thomas Anderson, but Punch Drunk Love really opened people's eyes to the versatility of his acting.
hmm
And I remember first seeing it, and I'll admit I didn't get it as at first when I was like, I don't know, I was like in middle school or something
it
like
looked
that.
too awkward. Like
It
this was
was,
so out of left field for him, not just for the
yeah,
audience, but for him. And just seeing
yeah,
like the way how he would kind of walk and look, and you're just like,
mhm, yeah,
what are you
and
doing?
and then I saw like a making of featurette with it shortly after, and then I watched the film again, and then I started to realizing and appreciating its genius, and then also just Sandler's subtlety of just like being very timid at first, but then he has like these outbursts of anger, And then I started to realize, okay, I think I understand what they're talking about in terms of like saying like this dude can act, right? And then he proceeds with other non-Happy Madison productions like Spanglish. Spanglish, I was like, yeah, I don't know, it wasn't really my cup of tea. But then he did a film called Rain Over Me, and I actually love that movie. I know that it did receive some criticisms in regard to
Post
its
9/11 film.
yeah, its depiction of 9/11 or post 9/11. But there is a scene where Adam Sandler just basically opens up to his therapist, and it is I was like shocked. I was like, this movie got no award recognition whatsoever. What's going on? I mean, this is I'm just flat dumbfounded, but whatever. And then he proceeded to do his Happy Mash and Stick again, and I don't think he did. He did Funny People, but that was a little bit mainstream and
Yeah.
comedy drama from Judd Apatow, who did 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up. So yes, he was kind of like detouring into the same territory as far as like Punch Drunk Love and Spanglish goes, but it wasn't like taking it to a full, different turn.
Yeah.
But then he did that with the Meyerowitz stories, and the Meyerowitz stories, it's I think his name is Noah Baumbach. It was a different kind of tone, but his performance, he was just basically, it seemed like he was doing what was asked, but it wasn't really something that was very just kind of like
The
that would impact the
film from
audience,
when
right?
I saw it, it almost felt
Yeah.
also too like just because Ben Stiller was in there, it felt like it tried to be a
Mm,
Ben Stiller movie. Like if you really watch some of those earlier Ben Stiller films, like whenever he directed like Cable Guy, I remember when
mhm.
I watched the Meyerowitz stories, I was like, are you trying to just because Ben's in this, are you kind of trying to be a little bit like a Ben Stiller where you can
Right.
have the funny, but you can
Hmm.
also have like this very deep personal meaning that is very subtext
Right.
kind of in it, but Uncut Gems and everything, a lot, what we're picking up with. Adam Sandler, outstanding performances. He's definitely sit there moving his way over. We were last up on the Meyerowitz stories. He also did, I'm trying to remember the basketball one.
Oh, Hustle. That was after Uncut Gems.
Yes,
Yeah.
and everything, because I would say Meyerowitz stories probably then came out, and then it was Uncut Gems. Everyone's like, holy shit, Adam Sandler can act. And all of us who have been, watching since Punch Drunk Love are like, where the fuck you been? And
Right.
everything. And then he started doing stuff like, Hustle, correct?
Hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
what's
so
what's
I
really
gotta see that one.
interesting And what's really interesting is Hustle. I mean, it doesn't have the anxiety-induced tone that Uncut Gems has, but it's really a serious kind of movie. And guess what? It's a Happy Madison production. I was just like, "Are you freaking kidding
Really?
me?" And this is a movie that has Robert Duvall, Ben Foster, like these really different names for Adam Sandler, and I was just like, "This is interesting." And I think it was like a straight to Netflix kind of film, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was a different turn.
I think that
Uncut
was the one
Gems,
he needed because the Ridiculous Six failed, and then he did another. Oh, he did Murder Mystery with Jennifer Aniston,
yeah,
and I
hmm,
think he owned them a third film,
yeah,
and that's I think when Hustle came out.
yeah, and so what I think is like a good equivalent of like what Uncut Gems meant is like it's kind of like with Heath Ledger. And with Heath Ledger, like I've never really thought much of the dude. I mean, I thought he was fine, but really didn't think much of the dude until Brokeback Mountain. And then I was like, this dude can act. I'm gonna start watching his stuff. And then he did The Dark Knight, and I was like, okay, this shifts to iconic status. Punch Drunk Love is like Brokeback Mountain, and then Uncut Gems is The Dark Knight. Like he like really escalates into
Mm-hmm.
damn near like legendary territory, like Brando kind of
Yeah.
just the way he plays this extremely narcissistic go-getter. And I'm picking go-getters for some reason, but he's like just this very very selfish but very determined dude who will strive to get anything even at the cost of his own reputation. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
care about what people think of him. He will just unless if it's like in
He
the
cares about
moment of
his
dealing with
kids.
these people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember that, but yeah, one thing I liked about it is that he tries to grasp on like the rep or the diminished reputation as much as possible because his own wife doesn't love him. You know, she's
Yeah.
still around, but because she knows that he can get stuff done and pays for basically provide a life for them, or I think that's how it went down.
Yeah, because he has like an apartment in one end of the
Yeah,
town, and then he has like this
yeah.
nice lavish
I
home.
can't. I'm trying to remember though what her contribution is though to all that, because I think she did provide help for him as well. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've seen that, but I do remember. But I do often go to excerpts, you know, from scenes because I was very impacted by, you know, the scenes where he tries to get what's his name, the basketball player. Oh, sorry, his name escapes me. But when he tries to
Yeah.
convince him to basically give him, yeah, basically do a transaction with him or try to um, I think it was like sell his ring or something like that. And
And
one
then
scene where he
didn't he
has
get his ring and everything, like
he
the
tried to
basketball
sell
ring?
it. He tried to sell it basically. You just
Yeah.
see him making like this slew of bad decisions, but then he has like this breakdown where it really ultimately solidifies like just how narcissistic and how messed up this guy is because he realized that he's in deep shit. And he has this massive breakdown where him and his girlfriend are there, and he's like just like saying like he's like shit or something like that. But then what does he do afterwards? He continues on this path of just making these bad decisions. And yeah, it's a very intense. I mean, yes, I can understand like how the direction, because this is a very anxiety-induced film with the editing and the direction. But Sandler's performance, I really do think amplifies that to such an uncomfortable degree, where anyone who's watching it, to me there's like no in between. If I've never seen any in between, you know, either people are just totally entranced by wanting to see how this guy will eventually meet his demise, which he does at the very end, like that very end where he like traps everyone inside his store until like the game is over and they win the bet that they placed. That is like just, oh my god, you just get a
That
headache
gambling
how
addiction,
induced
that
it
it's
is.
just,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it
And
it gets freaking nuts.
yeah, and then something happens to where he eventually, I will admit, the only thing that I didn't like about it is like the outcome afterwards. Like it just felt like it was too quick, but you kind of saw it coming with him. And yeah, but his performance in that film just really just shows that he is one of the most underappreciated when it comes to really true quality cinema. Like he has the capacity of containing that, and he was nominated and won for the Indie Spirit Awards that year. He won Best Actor, and he gave one of the best excerpt speeches, in my opinion, of all time. So he goes up there and he goes, I also want to thank my fellow nominees in this category, who will forever be known as the dudes who fucking lost to Adam Sandler.
Oh my god. So
So
we're gonna quickly shift on over to a really quick Q&A thing. I don't sit there see no questions currently right here in the chat, but you guys have a very quick second while I go and burn through these really quick questions with Steven.
mhm.
We're gonna call it like a quick burner round and everything, but some of them are gonna be related to the Oscars tonight. And our first one is, what film this for this Oscars do you think uh 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 this year has been snubbed wrongly? What is the one film, not a category, but film itself, that has been
Like
snubbed?
totally out of the Oscars.
It's out of the Oscars, and it should have been in the Oscars.
It's a movie called Thelma. It has received only one nomination and one award circuit, and that's the Indie Spirit Awards for Best Actress for Juno Temple. It is a comedy. It is a action comedy where the hero, the main protagonist, is a 95-year-old woman. Yeah, and it's technically an action film. Now, when you watch it, you're thinking like, how are they going to do this? Are they going to be? Is it going to be a slew of visual effects where it's going to be non-realistic, you know, explosions, things like that?
Yeah.
No. And I will dare not spoil it, but the way that they approach it, it is an amalgamation of heartwarming, thrilling, and just overall a feel-good film. And it's a film that is severely overlooked. It is so unique in its capacity because the woman, her name is June Squibb. She was nominated for an Oscar in a movie called Nebraska about 12 years ago,
Okay, yeah.
and yeah,
It's that
and
little
she
old
is
lady? The one that's all
it's that
like,
little
say
old
what you
lady.
could
Yeah.
have had. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And she's had a career in film since like the 80s, and she's always been like the supporting or an extra or anything like that. And this was her, I think it was her first main role where she finally got it at
Nice.
the age of 95. And so it's an inspiring story of how it's never too late. I know Demi Moore is getting her time to shine, but this woman, yeah, she really deserves it, and she's great in it. And it's also Richard Roundtree's final performance, who we lost last year. Yeah,
Oh,
he is great. He is great in that too. He has a moment too, and I'm going to say you need to see it too, because when they reveal the villain in this movie, you'll be surprised and you'll be like, oh my! And I know you know who this is, and you mentioned
ooh.
like how you're a fan of his before, so I will dare not ruin
Okay.
it. But yeah, yeah.
My next one is, what are your thoughts about the horror representation at the Oscars? This is the first Oscars in quite a bit that we have two horror films vying for nominations and everything, Nosferatu and The Substance.
Well, to be fair, Nosferatu is only up for technical. Substance is up for like the big
Yes.
ones, like best, all that stuff, for best screenplay and everything. If Demi Moore wins, she will be the fourth Best Actress winner for a horror film in Oscar history. The first was Kathy Bates in Misery. The
Mm-hmm.
second was the following year for Jodie Foster in The Silence of the Lambs. And then 20 years later, Natalie Portman for Black Swan. So if Demi Moore wins this, there'll be like another component for that kind of win. I mean, it does have the possibility of winning Best Screenplay, but other than that, I don't think it's going to win Best Picture or Best Director. Nosferatu, you know, it definitely earned all its technical nods. You love that film more than I did.
Yeah, that film was made for
I,
me.
yeah, yeah. But I will say this: Lily Rose Depp should have gotten an Oscar nomination for her performance. I will give it that in terms of the major category. She was
Yeah.
out. I mean, she outshined the main character in my opinion. Like she was more
Yeah.
frightening than actual Nosferatu. She was amazing in that film. But in
Welcome in,
terms of
Sam.
like yeah, like in terms of horror representation, I mean, yes, there's obviously needs to be more consideration in terms of films, and they have been doing that. I mean, hell, they were saying the same thing about comic book movies, and then when The Dark Knight came out, everybody was just like bitching about it's not getting Best Picture. What is going on? And so they started expanding their nominations from 5 to like 8, 9, 10 every year, so that way they could have more room for these big
Yeah.
budget mainstream blockbusters. And Black
Is that thing
Panther
Black Panther
became
2?
one. Yeah. Black
Or
Panther
was it the
2 was
first?
not Best Picture. It was the first one, but Black Panther
Okay,
2
okay.
got like tech nods and a Best Supporting Actress nod, which was I think was
Yeah.
the first nomination for an acting category in a Marvel film.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My last
But
question
in
here
terms
before
of
we
hold on. And in terms of horror, yeah, it does suck, but it does show that the Academy is evolving in terms of film considerations. So I don't know. Only time will tell.
but because
In my
especially if you
opinion.
look at the first two films, I haven't seen Black Swan, but if you look at the first two films,
Yeah.
Misery and
Silence of the
Silence of the
Lambs.
Lambs, those are horror films. They were
Yep.
only labeled a thriller because of the Academy of how they looked at it. And you
Yep.
look at The Shape of Water. Shape of Water has some horror, has a lot more horror elements into it, but they labeled it as a fantasy film. It's like it's a
Yeah.
fantasy romance, a dark fantasy romance film. And I'm like, well, at that point, technically, any horror film is a dark fantasy.
Hmm.
It's that, or it's a psychological thriller, and it's all like
Right.
the Oscars do better. My final one is a very personal one. Favorite YouTube film reviewer. I know you send me a lot of Jeremy Johns, but you also named a lot of really great ones.
Jeez. I honestly would have to go with Jeremy because I mean he's not okay in terms of he's not like the most analytical person. He's not like the most he doesn't have like the snobby vocabulary like I've seen other people in terms of
Like
like
an Ebert.
going into who go into like the very detailed analytics of how a film is made, but just the sincere passion of that dude, you know, him being a fanboy and him just loving every minute of it, and also not only that, but being totally sincere. Because a lot of people, sincerity can make up for a lot of flaws, and Jeremy has that. You know, he's had a few backlashes, or he had a few backlashes here and there. There was even one where he reviewed a film that was considered very conservative. I think it was called "Am I Racist?" or something like that. And and he received a lot of flack for just like saying like, look, it's a movie playing. I wanted to go see it, and I'm giving my honest opinions about it. You know, it doesn't mean that I converted to the side. I just thought it was funny, and that was that. And then apparently he did lose some people, but he also obtained a lot of people because he was being sincere. And I think this was also in conflict with how Chris Stuckman was kind of like doing his thing, where it wasn't really appealing to audiences. So they're looking at Jeremy and kind of juxtaposed it a little bit, but in terms of just him being consistent and funny and just all around, just seems like a decent human being in terms, because you've never heard him.
Reviewer.
Yeah, I really do like how he just never changed, you know, and he's been doing this since 2009, and he's still the same guy. So Jeremy Jones, yeah, definitely.
Alrighty then, folks, we're gonna wrap this up here. Thank you guys again so much. Thank you, Steven, again for being here. We're gonna find people on the socials, find your reviews.
Technically, I mean, I don't have anything in terms of high content. It's just written reviews right now. So I do letterboxed, and I do very summarized story reviews on Instagram. So my letterbox is Sway Has Opinions. My first name is Steven. My last name is Way. So first initial Way, Sway. And then you could, I guess you could just type my name, Steven Way, on Instagram and find me there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I tagged them in the post and everything to market this, so it's like you guys can like all go follow there. Thank you again so much, folks. You can find me on the socials, Gothic Storyteller, here on Twitch, as well as the Instagram and everything. If not, look up James Howe. You'll freaking find me somewhere and everything. If you guys want to sit there and get this episode a week early before YouTube gets a hold of it, make sure to go over to Ko-Fi and subscribe there, and you guys will get it a week ahead and everything. You get it on Sunday, so technically you get it like more than a week ahead and everything, but usually on the Sunday before, that's whenever I drop it on the scheduling, and then you can't watch it no more. It's all like, so you get a week to watch it before everyone else on YouTube gets to watch it and then like swipes from it. But thank you again so much, Steven, for this awesome episode. Like we definitely we probably gotta bring it back once every season where we just nerd the fuck out. Like, it doesn't have to be three favorite anything. It's all like, let's talk about Nosferatu. We could probably do that for an hour. Like,
talk about that
or Uncut Gems mustache. Oh my lord, don't hate on the European mustache. You know, Lily Rose Depp apparently was into it. That's why she called to him.
Right.
Oh my god. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys all later.